Okay, now I'm sure I'm not the first guest speaker that said this, but one reason why I would love to move to Hawaii and pastor a church out here is so that I could wear aloha shirts all the time. We'd really enjoy that. By the way, we went snorkeling today. My son and I and his wife, we went up to Sharks Cove. How many have ever been up there, Sharks Cove? Man, that is just beautiful. And then a place called Three Tables there too. And we snorkeled everywhere. And we found one sea turtle, but just all kinds of, it was just a great, great day. So thank you so much, Pastor, for the schedule and everything. Pastor Reed, it's good to see you. I still have on my telephone, we sang in your new building. You remember that when the group came before it was open, before anyone was there. And that was just such a beautiful church building. And I hope things are going well there. And enjoyed so much being with your young people at your Christian school that day too. I remembered that very, very much. And it's good to have you all. So here's what we're going to do. How many, if you were here last night, stand up. If you were here last night, stand up. I want to just kind of look around, see what we've got. Okay, looking really good. Thank you. You may be seated. So we're going to review very quickly over last night. So guys, sorry, but you get a little bit here. I'm going to review really quickly. As a matter of fact, I am a teacher. I teach 6 classes in college every semester. And so we always do the review. And by the way, a lot of our review was on gender distinction. And we talked a lot of things about gender distinction, so I need you guys to help me a little bit. But to begin with, let's go to Genesis chapter 2 for just a moment. We started last night in Genesis chapter 1. And while you're turning to Genesis 2, let me ask you all a question. Out loud, together, are men and women equal? Yes. Yeah. All right, good. You're all mixed up, and that's exactly the right answer. Are men and women equal? The answer is yes. They're equal in what? Someone raise their hand, tell me. They're equal in what? Yes. Value, importance, worth. Are men and women equal? No, they're not. They're not equal in what? Role, responsibility, and function. Okay. Very good, very good. We'll have a little bit, by the way, Satan is trying to destroy the distinction between male and female. And what is the 4-step process of what Satan's trying to do? If you destroy separation, what's the first thing? Everyone together, what's the first thing that will occur? Confusion. Then what's the second thing that will occur? Conflict. Very good. And then, because you can't live in conflict, what will you then do? Compromise. And then finally, there will be corruption. And that's what Satan, and by the way, this is not just true for gender distinction. This is true in every area of separation. Satan tries to blur the lines because you lose the discernment, there's confusion, there's conflict, there's compromise. You know, by the way, do you know the number one thing that we struggle with at West Coast with our students is music. It is trying, and by the way, and the second is dress. Music and dress are the two. I'm the dean of students there. So let me just tell you, the 2 things that we deal with more than anything else is in areas of dress and in areas of music. And Satan wants to blur those lines so that there's not a distinction between right and wrong. And by the way, music is not all moral. It's not neutral. There is right music and there is wrong music. And so, anyways, and Satan's doing the same process and all of that. Let's look at Genesis chapter 2 at the very end. And then we'll have a word of prayer. We'll review a little bit more with the men on the greatest need of a woman. And then we'll get into the ladies tonight. And then I do want, for about 15 minutes max, I want to talk to you about corporal consequences for your children. And especially if you have young children, I think you'll find it to be extremely beneficial. Genesis chapter 2, let's look at verse number 20. And Adam gave names to all the cattle, the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found an helpmeet for him. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon Adam. And he slept, and he, that would be the Lord, took one of his, everyone together, ribs. Do you ever think about what the Lord, the bone that the Lord used to form woman? He did not take a bone from Adam's foot so that he would step on woman. He did not take a bone from Adam's hands so that he would control woman. He did not take part of the bone of Adam's skull so that he would think like woman. Praise the Lord for that. What did he do? He took a bone where? Closest to his, so that he would love woman. Isn't that interesting? Of every bone of the body that God took to form his helpmeet, he took the bone closest to his heart so that he would love woman. I love that. I think that's a great statement. Okay, here we go. Continuing on. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep. He took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh instead thereof. And the rib, which the Lord God had taken from a man, made he a woman and brought her unto the man. Now, I preach on this about finding your wife. You don't have to look for the right one. You have to be the right one, and you will get the right one when I talk about dating. And that's very, very important. Now, the Bible says, I know, he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing. So, Brother Schettler, really, young men are supposed to be out there trying to find their wives. No, they're not. Now, when I go to the beach, like today, we found some cool stuff at the beach. I wasn't looking for it, but I found stuff. Where I was, I found some really cool things. You don't have to look for the right one. You have to be the right one, and you will find the right one. And it's so important. Notice what happened here. God brought Eve to Adam. And God will bring the right one in a person's life. I don't know if we have any single adults here tonight, but if we do, that's a great verse for you. You don't have to look for the right one. You have to be the right one, and you'll find the right one. Okay, then verse 23. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. I've had the privilege to perform 211 weddings. That's a lot of weddings, folks. And I did not pastor in Las Vegas, by the way. But I've had the privilege to perform 211 weddings. And a lot of times people ask me the question, when is it that a couple actually gets married? I mean, what's the moment that they were single and now they're married? And a lot of people have a lot of different answers. Some people say, it's when the young lady walks down the aisle with her father and the preacher says, who giveth this woman to be married to this man? And the father stumbles out, her mother and I. Well, it's at that point now, that's a very important part of the ceremony, but that is not when they get married. Some people say, well, it's when you as the preacher say, now, may I be the first to introduce to you Mr. and Mrs. Wayne Surface. Okay, is that when they got married? No. You say, well, Brother Schettler, it's when they have physical intimacy. And at the moment they have physical intimacy, they're married. That's not true at all. We know a lot of exceptions to that in the scripture. Well, when is it that a couple gets married? I had one person say, when the father of the bride finally pays all the bills, then they're married. Okay, that's not it either. Do you know when a couple actually gets married? Is when they say their vows to each other. Notice what Adam just did. And Adam said, By the way, these are the first words of man in the Bible. This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken out of a man. He says, you are now mine. He's making a covenant with God who just created Eve and with Eve. And he is making his vow. And when does a couple get married? It is when they say their covenant to each other and to God. It is at that moment that they are married. By the way, do they get married if they're lost? If somebody's not saved, are they still married? Oh, yes. Because God instituted the marriage and the sanctity of the marriage. It doesn't matter whether they're lost or saved. This is the institution of marriage. And it is holy, divinely sanctified by God. Okay, so last night, so what we have here, oh, then we got one more verse. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and were not ashamed. So we have two individuals, very different. We have the male and the female. It's the only combination that works. We have a male and a female coming together. They have two different backgrounds, two different personalities, two different spiritual gifts. They are different people. They come together and become one. Well, when that happens, that male has needs. And last night, we talked about the female. And the female, the wife, has needs. I believe that all of her needs can be put under one word. Everyone help me now. This is the one that's going to disappoint me if you don't give me a good answer here, all right? What is the number one need of a wife? Everyone together? Security. Protection, security, anything you want along those lines. Then yet last night we gave the basic need of your wife is security. How do you accomplish producing that protection? Number one is by spiritual what? Everyone together? Leadership. Now there's two elements of leadership. What are they? Initiative and a servant's heart, a servant's spirit. Very good. Then number two, by cherishing and making your wife feel, everyone together, valuable, worth, value, importance. Be aware of her value. Be aware of her presence. Be aware of her time. Be aware of her fears. You value her. Number three, needs to be needed. Very good. Needs to be needed. One of the great, important, I believe, needs of a wife. Listen to her cautions. Bring her into your life. Praise her character and works. Allow her freedom to spend, decide, and enjoy. Then number four, everyone together, allow her to make her house a home. It's one of the great needs of that security, of that nesting instinct. Be a part of housework. Help with practical decorating around decisions, which also it referred to Christmas decorations there. Help her succeed as a housewife and mother. It's not clean or done unless she says it is around the house. Okay, now tonight, I want you to take your Bibles and turn to 1 Peter chapter 3. And we're going to have a word of prayer. We're going to ask God to help us tonight. We're going to do the thing about about corporal consequences. But before we do that, wives, I want you to know that your husband has needs. I don't think I need to tell you that. But I want to talk to you about the basic need of your husband and then how to meet that basic need tonight. Let's go ahead and read 1 Peter 3, 1 through 6. We read verse 7 last night to the husbands. Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel. That's going to be that protection, that security, as is being heirs together of the grace of the life, that your prayers be not hindered. Now, ladies, listen to a passage of Scripture that is the antithesis of our worldly culture today. But I am telling you, ladies, there is great strength, there is great power, and there is great influence in the verses that I'm about to read. Let's look at this. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 1. Likewise, ye wives, be in subjection to your own husbands, that if any obey not the word. Now, that could be an unsaved husband, but that absolutely could be a believing husband who's not living right in a certain area of their life. If any obey not the word, they also may without the word be won by the, everyone together say the next word. Okay, the word conversation there has more to do with manner of life and of conduct. I think it does have things to say about your verbal and your words, but it really is talking about your conduct and your manner of life. Without the word may be won by the way you live your life, ladies, of the wives, the conversation of the wives. While they behold your chaste conversation coupled with fear, whose adorning, let it not be the outward adorning of plaiting the hair and the wearing of gold or the putting on of apparel, but let it be the hidden man of the heart, in that which is not corruptible, even the ornament of a meek and quiet spirit, which is in the sight of God of great price. May not be in the sight of our culture, but in the sight of God, what is a great price? A meek and quiet spirit. Look at verse 5. For after this manner in the old time, the holy women also who trusted in God adorned themselves, being in subjection unto their own husbands, even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters ye are, as long as ye do well and are not afraid with any amazement. Wow. Ladies, this is an incredibly powerful passage of Scripture. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, I pray tonight that we would understand the need of a husband. And Father, then may the ladies that are in here, if they're wives and they're married, may they spend their life fulfilling and wanting to supply the great need in their husband. Lord, I truly believe if men will bring security to their wives, the wives will bring respect to their husbands. But I absolutely believe, Father, that if wives give their husbands respect, the natural response would be to protect that which is giving them respect, to give security and love and value to the one that's giving them respect. Father, I pray tonight that wives will make a decision not to believe what the world is saying on how to influence people in this world, but will trust in what the Scriptures say. Then, Lord, I do pray the thing about the child raising and the corporal consequences that can be taken so wrong so quickly. Father, our desire is not at all that anyone would handle their child improperly, but that they would actually handle their child with great love. And Lord, may we show them how that can be done tonight through the Scriptures. We pray all these things in Jesus' name, and God's children said. Now I'm going to give you an unusual illustration to begin with. And I know we don't have teenagers in here tonight. I know they're downstairs. But if I was going to start a youth group, let's say Pastor Surface asked me, hey, Brother Schettler, would you the last 10 years of your life come and be our youth pastor, okay? And I'm going to give you something, though. You can choose 10 young people. Any 10 young people that you want to start your youth group, you can have. I'm going to tell you right now what I would choose. I would choose 7 godly girls and 3 godly young men. Now you said, Brother Schettler, last night you talked about men being the initiators, being the leaders. And now you're telling me if you're going to start a youth group, you're going to pick 7 godly girls and only 3 godly men, guys? Isn't that an antithesis of what you said last night? Not at all. And let me tell you why. Ladies, you have no idea the influence that you have on guys, on men, on your husband. Let me share this right now. If I have 7 godly girls, oh, by the way, there would be one other thing. If they're kind of pretty too, okay? They can be just a little bit nice looking, okay? I will tell you this, my youth group will be busting at the seams. And I'm going to tell you why. And they're going to be on fire for the Lord Jesus Christ. I'm going to tell you why. Because a young lady, let me throw in another story in the midst of this one that I'm talking about. Okay, you have a 8th grade boy. He's 13 years old. And, you know, whatever he's struggling with in life, it doesn't matter. He's a teenage boy. He's 13 years old, so you can imagine. And he does something at school one day. He opens the door for one of his teachers, or he helps this girl carry in her backpack or something like that. And a 17-year-old junior girl notices that. And that 17-year-old junior girl goes over to that 13-year-old 8th grade boy and says, hey, I saw what you just did. It's pretty cool. Good job. That boy will never be the same. That boy will never. He'll start looking for more things that he can do. You know why? The greatest need of a male, everyone together, is what? Respect. He just got respect from an older girl. That guy's life will never be the same. And I am telling you this, if I'm going to start a youth group, you give me 7 godly young ladies that have a relationship with God. And I'm going to tell you what, the guys will raise to that standard. Now let me share this with you girls, because a lot of times in the culture that we live in, we're trying to get women to act like men to have influence. That is not what gives a woman influence. What gives a woman influence is a meek and quiet spirit. And I'm going to explain that in just a moment. But I want to share this with you. A lot of times when I travel, people ask me, hey, Brother Schettler, who are the greatest influences in your life? And I know what they're thinking. I know what they want. They want me to tell them of some preacher in my life. I've had preachers in my life that have influenced my life. There's no doubt about it. But I stand here and tell you right now, the 2 greatest influences on my life spiritually has been my mom and the woman I call my wife, my very best friend, Marilee. No 2 people on planet Earth have influenced me more spiritually, more towards God, has more influenced my ministry than my mother and my wife, Marilee. And I want to tell you this whole idea of, well, women, if we don't act like men, we can't influence and we don't have power. Your power is in a meek and quiet spirit. Now, the greatest need of a man is respect. I think I got 3. I was going to say 4. I think there's really 3 simple things. Yeah. Well, no, 4. I do have 4 down. There are 4 simple ways, ladies, that you can give respect to your husband. How do you accomplish producing what I call affirmation? By the way, that is a great word. We use the word respect. I think we understand that word better, but I really will tell you the word that men desire and need is affirmation. That what they're doing is they're doing good in whatever they're doing, all right? Number 1 is verbal praise. And if you look at verse 5 and 6, it even says that the women of old called their husbands Lord. Well, I'm not telling you to do that tonight, but there is something to be said about verbal praise. Nobody is better than you. Nobody does it like you. Nobody compares to you. Now, I know you can at first think, ladies, well, those sound very proudful. But you've got to understand the male ego. And that man so badly wants respect and affirmation about what they're doing. Now, I pastored for 25 years. I've been preaching now for 38 years of my life. And I've had a lot of comments and compliments after I've preached. I've had people come up and said, Brother Schettler, that's just the message I needed, and thank you for preaching the word, and blah, 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 blah. And they're encouraging. I get a lot of notes. I get notes from college students saying, hey, Brother Schettler, so appreciated your class, blah, 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 blah. And we need that, and I appreciate that. But I will tell you, in 25 years of pastoring, I would always walk out every Sunday morning with my wife. She would take my hand, and I would take her hand, and we would walk out. And we'd get out in the foyer, whether it was at Pensacola or First Baptist of Santa Maria. We'd get out there in the foyer or whatever. She did not do this every Sunday. I'm not going to tell you that she did. But as we would walk out, there were many times she would grab my hand and squeeze it. And she said, Jim, God used you today. God used you today, Jim. Now, I got to tell you, I preach for the Lord. I do not preach for the praise of man. But you will never know, wives, what that meant to me as a husband. That my wife said, Jim, God used you today. God worked through you today. The encouragement that was, the affirmation. I could have 30 people come through and say, man, it's the best message ever. And I go like, well, that's good. Praise God. Yeah, amen. But for my wife to say to me, Jim, the Lord used you today. Ladies, I cannot tell you what that means to your husband. The affirmation, the praise, the verbal praise that what they're doing, they may not do it exactly the way you wanted it. They may not do it, but I'm telling you, for them to know that you're affirming, that for them to know, what do we say a lot of times about wives? Stop nagging me. That is and I'm going to show you how to do this, ladies. I'm going to give you some great stuff tonight on how you don't have to nag your husband if you learn what we're going to give you tonight. So number one is verbal praise. Number two is confident trust. Now, I'm actually putting 2 and 3 together. So we're going to jump down to number 3, sweet submission. Because I want to talk about this whole concept together. And in order to do this, we're coming back to 1 Peter 3. You've got to see this, gang. Take your Bibles and turn to Hebrews chapter 13. Now, I preach a message to teenagers about authority. And when I prepared this message years ago, I was going to use the Hebrews 13:17 passage. It says, obey them that have the rule over you, and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls as they that must give an account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for this is unprofitable for you. Okay, so, and here's how I was going to preach it. Obedience is the action. Submission is the attitude. Okay, and I've heard other people say that, and I thought, well, that's a good point. I like that. Obedience is the action, submission is the attitude. By the way, I agree with that. But, so I want to tell you about my Bible I have. Brother Schettler, you have King James? Yeah, I have a King James, yeah. But I have a special kind of King James Bible. I have what is called a Zodiates. Now, let me tell you about my Bible. I believe the key to studying a passage of Scripture is the definitions of the words. If you can understand the definitions of words, you can understand the passage. I think a lot of preaching is being done today without definitions of words. You may go back through, since I have been here Saturday night, I believe I have defined over 15 words, starting with rebellion. What is rebellion, by the way? Believing a lie. Who was in Sunday school? What is disappointment? Unfulfilled expectation, okay? I think I've defined probably about 15 words. I'm a huge definer of words. I think it's the key to everything because you're not communicating with people if we're dealing with two different kinds of, if we're using the same word but we got two different definitions to it, we're not communicating. By the way, did you know that Catholics are saved by grace? Oh, no, they're not, Brother Schettler. Oh, ask a Catholic if they're saved by grace. I was a Catholic for 12 years. We were told that we were saved by grace. We get the grace by doing the sacraments. Well, Brother Schettler, that's not grace. Well, I know that's not grace, but I'm telling you, we were told we were saved by grace. And we get God's grace by living by the sacraments. Well, Brother Schettler, that's not the right definition. You're right. So having the right definitions of words are pretty important. So the Zodiades Bible is the one. Because the Zodiades Bible puts numbers next to the word. So here, help me out here. So next to the word obey, there's a number. Can you read that number?
3,982.
3,982. So I go to the back, I look up the word, 3,982, and I get my definition. Okay, y'all with me? So one day I'm studying this passage, Pastor. And I write down obey, and I write down the number 3982. And I go through and I pick out a couple other words I want to look up, and I look up the numbers. I'm about to turn to the back. And as I do, I glance down at verse 18. And I see 3,982. But I don't see the word obey. But it is exactly the same word. Anyone know what word it is? What's right next to the word trust?
3,982.
3,982. Now, wives, this is the jewel of the night, so get this. The Bible doesn't really teach that you have to obey your husband. The Bible teaches that you have to trust God to work through your husband. Now, you hear what I'm about to say right now, because this is the whole key to submission. What is submission? I was, by the way, talking about definitions. I'm in my office one day, and I'm trying to figure out this word submission, and I'm trying to figure out a definition. And I'm going, hey, compound word, sub. What does that mean? What does sub mean? Under. What does mission mean? Agenda, purpose, under someone else's agenda. What does it mean to be in submission? If you're in the military, you know what that means. You're under somebody else's rank. They're not better than you, but you are under their rank in order for the military to work. It is not that the officer that is over you is a better person than you are, a smarter person than you are, a more intelligent, you hope that they are, but every one of you in the military may have officers that you go, man, I know more than he does or she does. That isn't the point. In order for the military to run properly, we have to be in submission. Are we all on the same page here? Now here, listen to this, ladies. This is the key to this whole thing. You do not have to agree with your husband. No. You're not a bad wife because you don't agree with your husband. Matter of fact, you're probably a good wife if you don't agree with your husband because you compliment him and go like, I don't think this is right here, okay? I don't think this is the right way to do this. You do not have to agree with him. You do not have to understand your husband. But what do you have to do? Don't say the word submit. Don't say that we got to obey our husbands. No. What do you have to do? You've got to trust God, that God will work through your husband. I will tell you, when a wife finally stops nagging, stops pushing, and just says, God, I cannot change him. Yeah, that's my job, sister. I have tried for 13 years to change this man, and he cannot change. You're right. Why don't we allow the Holy Spirit to start doing it, ladies? And here's how it happens. When you decide to stop trying with an agenda to change your husband's thinking, and you trust God and say, God, I don't agree with him and I don't understand him, but I'm going to trust you. And I don't think your trust is in your husband, really. I think your trust is in the Lord. And you say, Lord, I'm going to trust you that you are going to work through my husband. Right now, this is going to put us in financial debt. This is not going to be good for our kids. Now, you listen to me, wives. Well, what if your husband fails in an area? Well, let me tell you a greater failure. When you step in and start doing what your husband should be doing, you're more than failing. You're destroying what God has created. Let your husband fail in something in order for him to realize, you know what, honey, you were right. Mm-hmm. Now, let me give you a little illustration. Now, ladies, when you hear this illustration, you're going to think, boy, to me, that just sounds like a game. It is not a game. It is man's respect that we are dealing with here. Okay, so Marilee and I want to buy, and this just happened in the last year and a half, okay? Marilee and I want to get a new refrigerator, okay? So here's how I did it. Now, my wife is a pretty dominant woman. She's very confident. She's very assertive. So I knew when I married her, I wasn't going to be able to hold these tight ropes on her. Oh, boy, her and I'm going to break that will of my wife. No, that doesn't happen. Okay, so I know I got to let my wife, but I know my wife is under my authority. So I got to let my wife run here a little bit here, okay? So I said, honey, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to have you go out and you go in your time and pick out a few different ones, and then Saturday we'll go look at the ones that you picked out, and together we'll make a decision. Now I'm telling you something, men, that was pretty wise. It didn't work out exactly the way that I wanted it, but I thought that was pretty wise. So she went out. So she had one at Best Buy. We looked at one at Sears. And Lowe's, because that's the one we ended up buying, was at Lowe's. So she had picked out a few, and we went and we looked at them. So now it comes down to, and I can't tell, I ruin my illustration here in a minute. But so we looked at all three of them, and there was one that I really thought that we should get. And now she picked out the three. It was like, okay, any of these three, right? Well, it didn't work exactly that way. There was really one that she wanted, okay? So some of your husbands are going like, I know exactly. Okay, so we're coming back from the third place, and we're having a discussion that turns into an argument. Marilee and I are now arguing about the refrigerator deal. And, you know, the details really are not important, and really, you'd be surprised, the finances really weren't. It was just, we were really kind of, you know, doors like this, open up, you know, whatever, you know. And what we wanted, well, it turned into an argument. And we get home, and we had our little separated moment, you know, and we get back together, I don't know, a half hour later, we come and sit down, and Marilee says to me, I'm in the back, and I'm thinking, now, ladies, you need to hear this. I'm in the back going like, you know, I let her go out and pick the three, but it really was only one that she really wanted. You know, and I just, man alive, she just needs to submit. I said that in my spirit. I said, man, I let her pick the three that she wants, and now this is the one I think we ought to get, and this is the way it needs to be. And that's the way it needs to happen. So about a half hour later, I come on out, and Marilee says to me, Jim, I am absolutely fine. Let's just get the one at Best Buy. That was the one I wanted, the one at Best Buy. And I thought it had the best warranty, blah, 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 blah. And I said, and she said, Jim, I really think we need to get the one at Best Buy. Now, let me tell you, ladies, exactly what happened in my mind right then. Yeah. It is exactly what happened. I said, yes, it is about time she realizes that. I did, I absolutely did. And then let me tell you, ladies, what is the next thing that I said in my mind? Well, we probably could do the one at Lowe's. That was the next thing in my mind. You know, it really is okay with Lowe's. Now, ladies, do you understand what just happened? She respected me. And as soon as she respected me, I was all ready to want to do what she wanted. Does that make sense? Do you guys understand that? And see, what are we taught on sitcoms and movies? That men are a bunch of buffoons and they're stupid, and that teenagers and women know everything. And you know what? You ladies do know a lot more than us. But you know what? We have a basic need. And our basic need is respect and affirmation. And I am telling you, once we receive that, we really could care less what refrigerator we have. We really could. It's not a big deal what refrigerator we have. It became an issue. Ladies, I want to share this with you. I think I talked to Marilee later after we got, and by the way, which refrigerator did we end up getting? Oh yeah, there's no question. We got the one she wanted. But you know what? It was, by the way, I had no problems with that. What I had a problem was that she was going to fight me, that she was going to resist me. And ladies, I know you don't understand what I'm saying right now, but I am telling you, it is absolutely true. And I just want to encourage, the meek and quiet spirit is the greatest influence. When my wife said, you know what, Jim, let's get the one from Best Buy. Yeah. Now I've conquered that. Now I want to protect. I got the respect and affirmation. I want to protect my wife. I want to get her the very best one in the world. Now, I wasn't thinking that back in the back room, but that's the way God created us and worked together. We love our refrigerator. By the way, my wife made the right choice. She usually does. My wife is usually the right one. I don't question that. But I'm going to tell you something, ladies. You got to trust. You got to trust. And I don't think your trust has to be in your husband. I think your trust has to be in God. You may not agree. You may not understand. But you will trust God that he will work through your husband. And then sweet submission. It's kind of, they go right together. Now, I did want to talk about one thing under this. Proper appeal. Now, I teach all my college students this. It's almost funny. It doesn't almost matter what class you take with Brother Schettler, I will somehow get to appeal. If it's youth philosophy, how to appeal to your pastor. You know why? Because we are always going to be under authority. So we got to learn how to appeal. I think the Bible gives us 3 incredible examples of appeal. Daniel, Esther, and my favorite, Abigail. These 3 people mastered the art of appeal. Esther goes to the king and spares the Israelites. Daniel goes and is able to keep his convictions, but Abigail, she is the gem of gems on appeal. So here's the 4 principles to appeal. When you believe that your husband, because you want to give respect and affirmation, learn how to appeal to authority. Number 1, have the right motive in going. Have the right motive in going. If you're going to appeal something for the cause of Christ in the military, guys, women, if you're going to go and appeal at your office or your business, you better make sure you've got the right motive of why you're appealing. With parents, with a wife, it may be about the child. It may be about, for the sake, we got to change this. We've got to have some control. We've got to have some goals in our marriage and for our kids. Okay, you go to appeal. You got the right motive. Number 2, you write out the right words. I truly believe you ought to write out your appeal. At least have thought out what you're going to say. The right motive with the right words at the right time. Esther masters this one. Esther goes and makes 3 meals for the king before she actually gives her appeal. He is so ready to do whatever Esther wants. And that's because she's got the right motive with the right words at the right time. And this is the key. And this is what happened with Marilee in the refrigerator. The right response. If the authority over you says, no, we're not doing it. It's not happening. No, we are doing this. I don't care what you say, we're doing this. Respond properly, because it'll be in that response that God will work mightily. So the proper appeal is the right motive with the right words at the right time with the right response. Positive attitude, ladies, is amazingly powerful. Joy, encouragement, and humility. We are not taught that on television, but I am telling you, this is what a man will respond to, is a positive attitude of joy, encouragement, and humility. Now, number 4 is going to sound like a complete contradiction, and it's not. Number 4 is stay a challenge. Stay a challenge. Now you say, Brother, you just spent 30 minutes talking about submission, and now you're going to tell us to be a challenge. Yeah. And this is the balance, ladies, of keeping the fire in your marriage and the romance in your marriage. You are submissive. You are verbal praise, confident trust, sweet submission, but you stay a challenge for your husband. What does that mean? Spiritually, physically, mentally, socially. Okay, so how many of you have ever gone in to a woman's office? She's an authority figure in the office, in the business, in the military, whatever it is. How many of you have ever gone into a woman's office? She's an executive, she's got a high position, and on her wall is an 8-point buck. You ever seen that? You ever seen a woman's office with an 8-point buck? You have? Ooh, okay. You're the first person, and maybe the second, that I've ever heard that, okay? Tells you where our culture is, okay? Women don't put bucks, they don't put the deer that they kill up on the wall. Now, I know women who hunt, but they don't put what they get up on the wall. I've never been, and I've been in many executive women's offices. I have never seen a largemouth bass hanging on the wall. I never have. I've never seen shelves of trophies, but men do that. Men put deer on their wall. Why? They want to conquer something. Ladies, don't let them ever conquer you. Oh, you just told us to submit. Now you're telling us to be a challenge. Yeah, I am. Be a challenge to your husband mentally. My wife right now, she's 61 years old. She's getting a master's degree. I think that's the coolest thing in the world. My wife right now is, well, she's probably sleeping right now, but my wife this week has been working. She's taken 2 master's classes this summer, and she's really close to finishing her master's degree. She's 61 years old. She is still expanding her mind. She's teaching at West Coast. Man alive, we get together, we talk about education, we talk about, man, you know what? There is nobody I would rather talk to on planet Earth than my wife, and just about everything. My wife knows about my football teams. My wife is a challenge to me. My wife is a challenge to me socially, mentally, and I'm going to tell you this. We've been married for 38 years. My wife has challenged me spiritually. My wife keeps me, you know what, if I don't have my devotions, I know my wife is going to have her devotions. If I don't go to church, I know my wife's going to church. I love that. I love that I'm married to someone that is a challenge to me. And by the way, physically as well, too. I think you ought to look good, girls. I think you ought to, you know what, you're not going to always have this perfect little figure you did when you were 18, but I think you still ought to be attractive in the way, because men are stimulated visually. Women are stimulated by touch. Men are stimulated by the eyes. So I think you ought to be a challenge for your husband visually. I think that's important. And if you stay a challenge, you stay submissive, you are giving praise to your husband, and you are meeting the needs that he has. So we've kind of gone through now what your spouse needs. The greatest need, okay, this is all we're going to do for review. Greatest need of a woman is men. Only men answer. Greatest need of a woman is security. Ladies, help me out. Greatest need of a man is, oh, ladies, that was terrible. That was not good, ladies. The greatest, oh, we're just doing meek and quiet, Brother Schettler. No. This is the one time you can be loud. Greatest need of a man is respect. Very good. Okay, let's go over corporal consequences, and I think I can do this in about 10 minutes. The verses are incredible to look up. The Proverbs 13:24 and chapter 29, verse 14, chapter 15, 22, and 23, and chapters 19, 18. And where's my Bible? We got to look up one of these. This is my favorite. This is my all-time favorite. Look at Proverbs 15, 22, and 23. You guys got to hear this, because we have lost this in our culture. Proverbs 15, listen to verse. That's not right. No, it's 20. No, it's Proverbs 13. What in the world? Here, wait a second. He that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth his betimes. No. It's not that one. But that's a great one. Proverbs 13:24 is, he that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes. And then we have, I think we have a punctuation problem here. Then we have, let's go to 15, 22, and 23. Withhold not, that is not right. 19, 18, hold on. Spareth his rod, will deliver his soul from hell. Wayne, where is that verse? I know it's in these verses, but I think the punctuations are in the wrong place. The one about he will deliver his soul from hell. And then, and if he, 19:18. 23:14. That's the one I wanted. That's where it's a typographical mistake. It's not 29, it's 23. 23:14. That's the one I wanted. Yes. Okay, it's verse 13 and 14. That is a definite mistake there. Okay, let's look at this. This is the one I want you to see. Proverbs 23, verse 13 and 14. Folks, listen to these two verses. Withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Thou shalt beat him with the rod, and shall deliver his soul from hell. No. We got to talk about this really quick. How can that happen? How can spanking your children deliver their soul from hell? So if you spank your child, they're going to get saved. Is that what that teaches? I think it is. But how? How does that? You spank your child, you're going to deliver their soul from hell. How does that work? Yes. Yeah. Okay. Consequences of sin. Now listen to me. This is absolutely amazing, and this is being taken out of our culture. Why do you get saved? Why does a person get saved? Yeah, but they get saved. They're convicted about their sin, because what's their sin gonna do? Send them to hell. Judgment. There is a consequence to your sin. Okay, I'm 12 years old, I'm a little Catholic boy, and I'm with a Baptist group, and I trust Christ as my Savior. November 8th, 1969, I get saved. Let me tell you why I got saved that day. I got saved because I didn't want to go to hell. I got saved because I knew that I was a sinner, and I knew there was a penalty to sin. Now, my mom and dad, my mom had just gotten saved like 2 months before. My mom and dad, basically, for all practical purposes, were not saved. But they spanked me. And I knew that when I did wrong, there was consequences for what I did that was wrong. I knew that we've taken that out of our culture. There are no consequences anymore for doing wrong. There's no judgment. So why in the world would anyone trust Christ as their Savior? There's no consequences if they don't. Now, there is, but in the culture that we live in, we've raised a generation. I think we've raised two, by the way. I think we're in the second one now. We've raised 2 generations of young people that have not experienced consequences for their sin. So why do they need a Savior? You only need a Savior if you're a sinner, and there's judgment, and you're going to spend an eternity in hell. And if you are a sinner and you're going to spend an eternity in hell, you're trying to figure out how to get saved. Jesus steps in. When you spank your child, what happens is they learn that there is a judgment and a penalty for doing what's wrong. And then, at 4 years of age, that's when my wife, that's when Ben, that's when Drew all got saved at 4. My special needs son, I think it was until he was about 11 years old before he could understand the concept. For me, it was 12 because that's when I heard the gospel finally. But my wife, Ben and Drew all trusted Christ when they were 4 years old. How did that happen? Because at 4 years of age, Marilee, Ben, and Drew knew there are consequences for sin. There is a punishment for sin. They didn't understand everything about hell, but they understood that there's a penalty, and they understood that they were sinners because they had received consequences for being sinners. Then they heard this story about God becoming a man and God taking our place and taking our punishment. Who in the world doesn't want to trust Jesus as their Savior if they actually believe that Jesus died, was buried, and rose again for my sin? It is not hard giving the gospel to people that know that they're lost and that there's a consequence for sin. It is not hard at all. We have raised a generation, and I think 2 generations of young people that have never experienced the consequences of sin. This is doctrinally. Corporal consequences for a child's behavior is pivotal for their doctrine later on. I absolutely believe, withhold not correction from the child, for if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Thou shalt beat him with the rod, and shalt deliver his soul from hell. Yes, because they're going to experience what consequences, and when they're given the gospel, they will trust Christ. All right, let's look at this really quickly. Discipline is the training of the will to do what's right. Discipline is the training of the will to do what is right. Any of you that went to boot camp, that's what all boot camp was about. It was about training your will to submit and do what is right. Okay, it takes 2 things though. Discipline takes 2 things. It takes instruction. Instruction is education and guidance. Moms and dads, you will not raise your kids in the aisles of Walmart. You cannot raise your kids at a dinner table at Olive Garden. It is not the place. You raise and train and instruct your children what is right and what is wrong in your home, in the privacy of your home, not in public. How many times have we been to the beach and we've seen parents trying to raise their kids at the beach? You cannot raise your kids at the beach or at Walmart or Olive Garden. You train and instruct your children at home. So it takes instruction, education, and guidance. And then, guys, it takes correction. And correction has 2 parts. Correction has understanding, and you're going to get that in just a minute, and it has consequences. Okay, so here we go. How do you give corporal consequences? Number one, clarify. This would be the understanding. Clarify with your child what will happen if disobedience occurs. Now, my wife has been a teacher for years. She has taught preschool, she's taught kindergarten. And there is no question, over 90% of classroom management has to do with how well you've instructed the children what they're supposed to do. Children will, by and large, do whatever you tell them to do if they know what they're supposed to do. They will always test the boundaries. Of course, they will disobey sometimes, but I am going to tell you our biggest problems as parents, we have not instructed our children properly and what's going to happen. Ben, Luke, Drew, if you ever say that word in this house again, that will be a 3-swat spanking. Drew, what did I just say? Don't say this word. And what will happen if you say this word? You'll get spanked. How many times will you get spanked? Drew, how many times will you get spanked? 3. That's right. Okay, we've clarified a spanking offense. I am telling you, once you clarify your spanking offenses with your children, there's just only one other thing you got to do. Let your yay be yay and your nay be nay. Back it up, gang. Back it up. And you got it, man. They will challenge you, but they ain't going to challenge you too many times. And especially if they know you mean business. So this whole thing about spanking your kids, you're going to do it very rarely. You're not going to do it very often at all. Because your yay's going to be yay and your nay's going to be nay. And when you say something, you have clarified what will happen. And if they do it, you give them the consequences. You know what? I will tell you guys, I don't really care what you think of President Trump. I struggle with a lot of things about President Trump. But I am going to tell you something. The whole world has changed in the last 18 months. And I'm going to tell you why. The guy says something, he does it. And it's like nobody has enforced anything that they've said because they're all a bunch of politicians. And when you do what you say, people will begin to respond. And it doesn't matter how old you are. You can be a big baby and be the leader of North Korea. But I'm going to tell you something. They all of a sudden go like, you know, maybe we better sit down and talk. Listen. And I don't care what we think about Trump. I really don't. It does not matter to me. The fact of the matter is there is a principle that is being used. Let your yay be nay, yay and your nay be nay, and tell them what's going to happen. If you do that again to your sister, that will be a 2-swat spanking. And then I always have my children repeat to me what I just told them. By the way, I did that as youth pastor too. I never let a teenager, I never told a teenager what to do without having the teenager tell me what I just told them. Because they'll always say, yeah, I don't remember you saying that, you know, or whatever. Okay, so it will create security for the child. It gives them personal responsibility. These are just so good. Say what you mean and mean what you say. Question the child that they understand. Have them repeat the command to you. Be in complete agreement with your spouse. Establish spanking offenses and policies. Gang, if you guys just do number 1, it is unbelievable what will change. Number 2, get alone with your child. Get alone with your child. Do as much teaching and correcting at home as possible. Separate them from the other siblings. Take them to a quiet room, possibly your bedroom. Okay, so Luke did something wrong. Luke, go to our bedroom. Now, we always used our bedroom. I don't care which room you use. Luke, go to our bedroom. I'll be there in a minute. I'll be there in a minute. Now, a lot of times, I need them to sit there for a while. Why? So that I settle down. Because I'm all upset. I cannot believe what Luke just did. And I'll be honest with you, I'm angry. Provoke not your child to wrath. Don't ever discipline your child in anger. Don't ever give consequences in anger. So a lot of times, they had to sit in there for a while till I settled down. By the way, that was great for them. That is the worst time in all the world, is waiting for mom or dad to come in to give the spanking. Like, oh man, what did I? So Luke's sitting in the back. I got him alone. And I got to tell you something. The other two siblings are wondering what in the world is going on. And I come out from a spanking, the other two siblings are the next closest things to Gabriel and Michael you will ever find. They are like the perfect angels because they know what just happened to the third child. So now they are just like, so it's you keep them away, you do it alone. And by the way, that's also giving respect to that child. It's giving respect to that child that you do it by themselves. Get alone. Do as much teaching and correcting at home, da, 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 da. Number 3, use a paddle. I don't care if it's a paint mixer. I don't care if it's a ping pong paddle. I don't care if you make a paddle. I was given this one day, and a pastor came up to me, and he said, hey, you know what we did? We named our paddle. It was called The Reminder. The Reminder. I thought, I love that. I almost wanted to have kids all over again to do the whole thing. I love that so much because you know what he said? His name's Pastor Bruce Barker, and he said this. Pastor Bruce said this. He said, all I had to do with my kids was, do we need the reminder? Do we need a reminder? And I thought that was great because the reminder was the paddle. And it was like reminding them, no, we don't need the paddle, okay? I'll never forget this. The year I took the paddle on vacation, that was the best vacation we ever had. I never used it, but that it was in the van was all my boys needed. And again, I think these things are so loving. We never, wood or some sort, we do not use our hand. We never use our physical hand. Use the same one as much as possible. Use the paddle on the part of their anatomy that God made such thing. You never take that paddle and hit them on their hands, their face, their back, their arms. There is a place that God created on their anatomy, their backside, their bottom, that God gave. There may be blueness in the wound. The blueness of the wound cleanses away evil. So do stripes in the inward parts of the belly. Number 4, never touch your child while you are out of control with your emotions towards them. Send them to a room to think about what they have done and for you to calm yourself. Large B, cool, calm, and collective. No emotion leaking through. It's like methodical. This is what happens. It is not, oh, I can't believe you did it again. Oh, what kind of kid are you? No. Go in the back. I'll be there in a minute. And I'm telling you something. It's just methodical. There's not an emotion leaking out. They've done wrong, there's consequences. They've done wrong, and there is a penalty. That must be the focus, not how you're emotionally upset. Number 5, they must not fight you or become defiant during the consequences. You double the amount if they do. Stay steadfast, mom and dad. Don't you quit. You are bigger, you are smarter, and you are stronger now. And you better get it while it's now. While you're still, because at one point, your child's going to be bigger, smarter, and stronger than you. So you better take care of it. Stay steadfast, don't quit. Spanking should become methodical in their procedure. Number 6, have them tell you why they are getting the consequences before you administer to them the spanking. They should tell you why. Drew, why are you getting a spanking? I don't know. Yes, you do. Why are you getting a spanking? I hit my brother. That's right. You're getting a spanking because you hit your brother. Pull your britches down. Okay, number 7, pray with them at the end. Have them confess to the Lord their sin and ask for forgiveness for him. Get specific, not general. Then listen to this next statement. It's on the back side of your sheet. Leave the offense in the room. It's over when you both walk out. It is a clean slate, and it's done. Okay, so let me tell you my highlight of my Christmas vacation. We rented a condo on the beach at Pensacola Beach. And Drew was there with Noel. Ben was there with Mackenzie, Luke, and Marilee and I, and we had a great time together. One night, we got talking about childhood things. And I don't remember how we transitioned into, but we got into spankings. And we got into corrections. And Drew, who's preaching to your teenagers down there, starts tearing up. And he says, you know, Dad, I think the greatest thing that you and Mom ever did for us was the way that you corrected us. And Luke chimed in. Remember, Luke had to raise his hand to say something. But Luke chimes in and said, you know, Dad, I always remember the spankings and what we did at the end. We always prayed, we always hugged, and then I always said something. And Ben jumped in. And Dad, I remember you always saying, it's over now. We walk out, it's done, it's over. We don't bring it back up. Are we okay with that? We all done? We're all done. Come on, give me a hug. Let's pray. And then we walked out and it was done. And I just want to tell you something. It was such a thrill to hear all three of my sons come in at different times. That means we did it for all three of them. I had them pull down their britches. We'd give them the spanking. They would tell me why they were getting the spanking. We would pray. We would hug. I would always say, and Mom did the same thing. Hey, walk out the door. It's over. It's done. Okay? Let's do it. Now, let me tell you something. Because we did it that way, we did not spank our kids much when they were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. We didn't spank. Did they ever get a spanking when they were that age? They did. They did. But it was, so, I mean, like maybe once a year, because we did it the way we did at the early age. And I'm just going to tell you this. This is the most loving way to discipline. This corporal consequences thing is what God gave as his plan. And if we do it in the right way, your kids one day will say, I think this is the best thing you did with us as a parent, Dad, was the way that you gave us consequences. And now, and they got to talking, and then they start putting the whole message together. You know what? This is the way God dealt with us. He would spank us and then we'd move on. God just wanted us to start living right. So he chastened us the child that he loves. Then after the chastisement, we're partakers of his holiness. We start living what's right and we have a greater fellowship with God. Hey gang, I want you to know, the Bible is the way to do it. And we can do and raise our kids and raise a godly seed and a godly generation. Pastor, I cannot thank you enough for the opportunity to be here. By the way, tomorrow night, everything's going to come together tomorrow night. You've got to be here. It's really not a message on the family. It's a message about starting a new beginning. So whatever you've heard since Saturday night, some of you are going like, oh man, it's too late for us. No, it's not. Be here tomorrow night and you'll see. Heads are bowed and eyes are closed.